We're live now. Give me my money back. She came by the house like, I just went to I never worked this quiet. How the Cleveland Indians doing?
Too high. I'm trying to not say a whole lot.
Hey, Sam.
To this day,
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this should be our final session to adopt a 2024-25 budget for Randolph County. We've got some homework to do, some cleaning up, some adjustments that have to be made relative to the year end that we'll take up first, and then approve some tax rates and adopt a budget tonight as we finish up our work for this year. Some, if not all of you, have been here for every one of these meetings. You have followed the course of the discussions and the presentations, and starting with our finance officer, Will Massey, who presented the budget and the revenues and the expenses accordingly. And some of you have made presentations in this process. So we welcome you and thank you for your cooperation and presence through the process. And we'll move through this tonight as is necessary, whatever time we need as a board to discuss this. So with that, welcome again. We are officially at order, and we are being streamed live tonight, as all of our meetings are. So with that, I'm going to recognize County Manager Zeb Holden, who joined us sort of in the middle of this process and got a quick and fast introduction to the county budgeting process. And he's going to kick us off tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We're aiming for a quick and fast meeting tonight as well. Just wanted to acknowledge that a lot of hard work goes into not only producing a new budget and getting ready for a new year, but also closing out an old budget. There's a lot of business that we need to tend to this evening. Appreciate Assistant County Manager Massey working through those details and getting us prepared to handle that. I also want to acknowledge and thank everybody for working with us and specifically with working with him in a year where we're starting off a budget $3.5 million or close to it in the hole. It's a difficult budget year, and appreciate everybody's efforts to try to get us to a finish line where we can adopt a budget, continue to do all the services that we intend to do for the citizens of our county, and move forward as best we can into a new year. So appreciate it. Glad to be a part of it, and looking forward to closing out one year and starting a new one.
Will, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned these are some typical closeout or cleanup items. We're going to have to clean up some of my memos as well too, but we'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to start off. We've got some procurement contracts to get approved. We have some regular general fund, special revenue fund, budget amendments to get to the end of the year, the tourism development, and then we have some capital projects that we want to try to close out.
Will, let me say to the board, We're going to vote on these in a block as he's presented, A, B, 1, and 2, C, in these adjustments. So,
Yep. I'll try to take it
Keep that in mind
as slow as the board needs to, and then I'll, answer any questions, make sure you're comfortable. The first is a contract with Randolph, which is the furniture for the Farm, Food, and Family Ag Center. This is under state contract, but if we go ahead and get the PO in there, we can lock down some prices. So that's $585,563 for the furnishings for that facility. Second is the food services contract at the detention center. This is Aramark. It's a 3-year contract. It's for $2,373,000, and so about 791,000 per year. Any questions with regards to these two procurement contracts?
any questions on these two? Then we will go ahead and vote on these two. Do I have a motion to,
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the 2 procurement requests as presented.
have a motion and a second? Further questions or discussion? Those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And it's approved.
Okay, thank you. Next is general fund budget amendments and some special revenues as well. The first one would be Veteran Services. They accepted some donations for the Wall That Heals. That event is in June. We would like to match up the expenditures and the revenues related to that. So this would just be an additional $3,850 related to that program. Next is juvenile detention. That's a separate line item we have in other public safety for the young offenders that have to go to a facility that's outside the county. We have to pay rent for them to be housed, and that would be an additional $25,000. We'll take that out of interest income, some additional interest income. But trying to right size the budget, not knowing really what the final expenses are going to be for the year, but we're close enough that we needed to probably add to that. The third one would be correct the transfer for the Northwest Randolph Center project. Last month we were trying to transfer some funds to the general fund to pay for the 911 equipment, and I doubled up on the transfer in, and so this is just going to correct that. That budget entry doesn't change the actual transfer of the funds, it's just cleaning up the budget. Next is item D, the Fire District Tax Fund. As you are well aware, the fire districts that we have here, the county assesses a tax and collects it, and we want to be able to remit all the collections that we get for this year to the fire departments for this year, not have anything carrying over to next year. So it's come in a little stronger. This is probably a little bit over the top, $600,000, but we'll make sure that we can remit all the fire taxes to the departments as it comes in. The vehicle taxes don't come in until July, so it's an estimate. And I just want to make sure we have that. That's an update from the package you had. Next is aging funding. We have the amount that comes through the regional council to senior adults, but there's also some ARPA money that they've been getting in addition, and we didn't budget that last year, and so we were over budget. So I'm just trying to match up what the pass-through revenues are. And finally, this is a new one that wasn't in your package. Thought we were probably pretty close on the school district taxes, but just like the fire district taxes, we want to budget enough where we can remit all the collections to the two school systems, whatever comes in. So this is just a little extra safety to make sure the budget's there to remit and clean all that up. So those are the ones for the regular budget ordinance.
Questions, Will? Do I have a motion to approve the general fund budget ordinance amendments?
So moved.
Do I have a
Second.
Second. Further discussion or questions? These might be tweaked again when we know exactly what the numbers are, or?
Well, this is just for the budget.
Right.
Anything else will lapse.
All right. Any other questions? Those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. And they're approved.
Thank you.
Tourism Development Fund.
So we have a special revenue fund because we have a contract with them to administer their funds, and we're trying to match county's special revenue fund with what has been approved by the board of directors of the TDA. So number 9 and number 10 were approved recently. So we want to go ahead and get those recognized so that we are matching up on our budgets.
Questions? Do you have a motion to approve the Tourism Development Fund adjustments, amendments?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And they are approved. Now
Okay.
our capital project ordinance will.
Okay. So here's the ones that probably I want to make sure that we have the right versions. And you have paper copies of the ones for closed Northgate. It should be stapled. There should a front page and a second page. Should start out with the budget grid is 60,000, but it's the one that should be stapled. It's the handout tonight. For several of these capital projects, the first two we want to close out two and make some resources available for the third one. So that's the goal here with these first three. So we've done pretty well and had some savings. We had some sales tax reimbursement and some interest income that were in excess. And we want to close that Northgate project down. That would result in $360,820 being transferred to the capital reserve fund. So you have a budget amendment or project amendment number 11 in the Northgate, and then a capital reserve ordinance to receive those funds, which would be on the second page there. Okay. That would be the first project change. Then we're talking about Ashburn City Schools capital project. I know they were fond of the Ashburn High School project, but it is finally over. I think that the final invoices are to be paid and cleared out. So this budget amendment would be number 17 for Ashburn City Schools capital project. There'd be some residual funds for that, $302,500, and that would go to the capital reserve as well.
Well, it says 18 at the top, 17 in the bottom.
Okay. Probably is number 18. We'll verify that. And then number 6 for the capital reserve. So that puts resources in the capital reserve. And as you recall, we had a project ordinance that was established a few months ago for the South Ashburn Middle School project. There's going to be some invoices for design coming up before the end of this year. So this would be project amendment number 1 that would show a transfer of $500,000 from the capital reserve, which we just put resources into, to the SAMS project to kind of seed that project. And typically when we start a capital project, we might transfer money from the general fund. In this case, we've closed out some, and now we're going to consolidate that and put $500,000 to move the SAMS project forward. So it's just a cash flow. But that's the purpose of these first few budget amendments. Let's see if I can stay in order here. All right, the fourth one would be the I-74 Industrial Center. When we created that, we left all the money in construction. I'd like to go ahead and just break out the land and the easements as a separate line item, so we know exactly how much we have in the construction line item. So this is $111,500. That's the land and the easements. And then we're down to the Northwest Randolph Human Services. It's a $10,000 adjustment just from furniture and equipment up to the construction to pay for some other things that related to that project that were not part of the contract, which we already had budgeted. And then finally, project amendment number 2 for the health facility renovation. This is where we're recognizing some additional investment income and sales tax refunds to increase the miscellaneous and furniture and equipment to try to match that up for the year end.
Any questions on any of the capital project ordinance amendments? Do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move to approve the 6 capital project amendments as presented.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Further discussion or questions? Those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Opposed, no. And they are approved. So, Will, that's the amendments.
Thank you very much.
So, now the capital improvement plan.
Okay. The only thing I'd mention there is we've had discussions, on the request by the county schools for 2 additional schools. We don't have those as capital projects yet, but the intention is, I think, to start doing some projections and some analysis of our debt capacity. Hope to bring that back to you maybe in August. Get past the 4th of July holiday, but in August, so we have some idea about, are those 2 schools affordable, how we might be able to pay the debt service on those. So they're not capital projects yet, but those 2 schools I think we'll be starting to work on, so we have some confidence that we can move those projects forward. Any questions about the capital improvement plan? Those will be the 2 new ones.
Any questions of Will? Okay, hearing none. Next item is the adopt the school and fire tax rates. The first one is the Archdale Trinity supplemental school tax. That district is currently at 7.03 cents, and it remains unchanged. And I will make a motion that we approve the supplemental school tax for the Archdale Trinity Schools at 7.03 cents. Do I have a second? Have a second?
Yes, sir.
Further questions? Those in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Opposed, no. And it is set. Next is the Asheboro City Schools supplemental tax, currently at 11.53 cents. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion to approve the Asheboro City Schools supplemental tax at 11.53 cents as current.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. And it is approved. All right. Our next is our fire districts. I don't know when's the last time this happened, but there are no changes in fire tax rates with this budget. That's, I don't know if that's humorous or it's an indication of the work that the fire departments are doing. And I think we helped them out last year to sort of bring their budgets back in line a little better, and especially with personnel issues. Some of them have some pretty steep capital issues out there. So the request is all of those rates to remain unchanged as they currently are.
Mr. Chairman, does that motion require reading all these tax rates, or can I say as they stand or as proposed?
And you can do it in one motion.
Okay, well, I'd like to do that in one motion. Adopt those rates as they are. I think that covers it. That's pretty public.
Do we have a second to that motion?
Second.
Further discussion or questions on any of the rates?
I would like to give extra credit to West Side and Liberty. I think those are the only 2 fire departments I saw. Oh, who's?
Yeah.
Okay. We'd love to give you extra credit, but, we'll mark it down. But thank you for coming and being here, so.
Right. All right, other comments? Those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And they are approved. The next item has to do with the adoption of the fee schedules for the next year. Those have been presented and they have been vetted and discussed at length here. I think the only one that brought a lot of discussion and suggestions, et cetera, was the fee related to the appeal of a zoning request decision. by either side. So the recommendation was to the board, the fee for a zoning permit, a rezoning permit, was $250. The recommendation for the fee to appeal a zoning decision was $400. And that has brought discussion by this board. It's brought a number of emails, texts, voicemails, et cetera, in particular from a couple of areas of the county who have gone through recent rezonings. So is there a motion that would deal with?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Would you give just a brief history about how the board came to this process? Because I know back before I became a commissioner, there was no appeals process, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And so, what?
Well, I think if I have a motion, I think it will come with some discussion on that
Okay,
very issue.
Okay, all right.
So is there a motion relative to the fees and any change to those fees as they were presented?
Mr. Chairman, I will make the motion. And I'll give you what my motion is, and then I'd like to explain a little bit of that if I could.
You make the motion and we'll have some discussion.
I make the motion on the rezoning application to move that from $100 current fee to $250. And on the rezoning appeal, which is currently $100, to move it to $150. Now, I've got to say that, as you well know, and members of the board I think know, I was on the Planning and Zoning Board when the rezoning appeal was put into place, and the fee was set at $100. There was a lot of discussion at that point in time with the Planning Board, and of course the Planning Board made the suggestion to the commissioners, and the commissioners did approve the $100 amount. It started out at zero, and the real discussion amongst the planning board at that time was, if we set it at zero, then you could get people that don't have any skin in the game and want to make an appeal out of it. That maybe you ought to have something in there to make somebody be serious when they wanted to make a rezoning appeal. And so that's why that was set at $100 several years ago, and has been there ever since. The reason that I am going with a $250 rezoning application increase to $250, and an increase of from 100 to 150 in the rezoning appeal, is the fact that I know that department also incurs expenses dealing with signage and processing applications and things. And I don't know that this would be as much revenue as they probably need to have to pay for some of that, but I don't think it's incumbent upon the taxpayers of the county to necessarily fund all of that either. So that's why I've kind of gone with a rezoning appeal from 100 to 150 to catch that part. But I don't think they need to have the onus of all the cost. If you're going to ask for a rezoning application, you obviously have some amount of reason why you're wanting to rezone a piece of property, and more than likely there's a profit motive in there somewhere to want to rezone something. So the appeal could come from the applicant. It could come from other people in the county, other citizens in the county. So I think going from $100, which it has been for a few years now, to $150 is a reasonable compromise, along with raising the rezoning app, from 100 to 250.
And Commissioner McDowell, I don't think there was a whole lot of, there wasn't any scientific process to those to those amounts.
No, there wasn't a lot of scientific looking into it. It's just a matter of, I'm sure that we need to look at raising the fees so we can pay expenses within the department and what it's incumbent to do. But no scientific study was enacted here. I just think it's a reasonable thing for us to bump the fees from 100 to 250 and from 100 to 150.
That is a motion.
That is a motion.
Do I have a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Second to the motion. Further discussion on the motion.
I'm using the Goldilocks method. I think 400 is too high, but I think 150 is too low. So I would think they were both 100 before. I think they should both be 250 at this point in time. So I wouldn't necessarily support that motion. I would prefer 250 each. To me, that seems a little bit more and covers, I don't know if 150 even covers the cost of advertisements and whatnot. I don't think we want to certainly make money on that, but I think we need to defray some of the costs. So I would prefer 250 for
Okay,
both.
Well, we won't be making money on it because according to my calculations, sorry. We won't be making money on it because according to my calculations, what is proposed for just the planning department is a budget of $412,860, and the revenues would be fees and revenues $22,170. And if you break that down, then the fees and the fees generate 5 3/10%. So I feel like overall for planning and zoning, if you look at that budget and the revenues with the fees that are proposed, it's only 3 6/10%. So I think about the process where they reached this figure, and I was told in conversation with planning board members that that their leadership met with leadership for some other counties and considered what was done there. They considered the amount of work that goes in, and they generated that figure. So I do think $400 is much. I'm not sure $150 really, it's not something to really just take lightly. I don't want that, so I'm going to appeal it. You're asking a lot of people to put in a lot of work, so thought needs to be given to it. I don't mean make it hard, but I do think some thought should be put into that. And value should be there for the work that's done. So I'm like Commissioner Allen. I think 150 is a little on the low side. I think 400 is too much. And I would agree they were both the same to start with. They should both be the same now.
I'm kind of in the middle on it. But not every zoning decision is appealed either.
No.
And it's not a money-making process, and whatever fee we set, it's still cheaper than any other county around, probably maybe some out in the far northeast, but it is considerably less than those around us, in particular municipalities. So, I don't think that there is a right number for it. Just as it was arbitrary before, it still is now. And it is what it is. And we're in agreement on all of the fees that were recommended, except that one. The motion that Commissioner McDowell has made the 250 on a rezoning request is the recommendation of the planning board. So, further discussion. Everybody ready to vote? Those in favor of the motion to set the, approve the fees as presented with the change on a rezoning appeal from $100 to $150. That's motion made and seconded. Those in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
No.
And the motion passes 3-2. All right.
Okay, that's for planning and zoning. What about
Yes.
public health? You had the public health was in the packet for the department heads, and that those are yearly fees that are adjusted by the vendors.
Oh, yes, good. You include that in the motion, Commissioner McDowell?
I would indeed.
All right, we're good. Yeah, the reference was to all the
Or we can
fees.
separate them, whichever you.
That's fine. We voted on all the fees presented.
That's fine,
And
yeah.
Everybody okay with that?
I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And the seconder accept that too. You, the seconder accepts that? Oh, all right. Okay. Here is the budget for outside agencies. One is the Economic Development Corporation. The other is the Family Crisis Center. So a sitting board member who's on these boards cannot vote on their budget request. So I'm going to request that I be recused from voting on the budget request of Randolph County Economic Development Corporation. Do I have a motion to allow me to recuse myself?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. So we will vote on the Randolph County Economic Development Corporation budget first. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the Randolph County Economic Development Corporation appropriation of $367,950.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Please note that I did not vote. Opposed, no. And it passes 4-0.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask the board to recuse myself from voting on Family Crisis Center appropriations, because I am on that board.
Do I have a motion to allow Commissioner Kidd to be recused?
I make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And he is recused. So now we will need a motion to vote for the outside agency budget request. You have a list of those that were considered the other night.
That was to recuse, wasn't it?
That was to recuse. So
We still not, we still got to,
Crisis.
we still got to vote on Family Crisis.
That's what I'm saying. Did I not say that right?
Yeah,
Yes,
just-
all right.
Just Family Crisis.
Yeah.
I see.
The remainder of the outside agencies, I thought was what we were doing. As we looked the other night. Wait a minute. The 75,000 right there.
Yeah, we got to
All
vote.
right. So motion, do I have a motion to approve the Family Crisis Center appropriation of $75,000?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Those in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. It passes 4-0. Commissioner Kidd did not vote. Now,
Now
with the
rest.
budget, we will take the remainders of those requests. Okay, so now, what brought everybody here tonight? We are approaching the time to vote for the county budget, 2024-25. As is required and as has been presented to this board, we have a balanced budget. We have budgeted all the revenues that are available to us and expenses that we could add to use all of that revenue. We have a number of requests that are not included in this budget. we have stretched the projections for sales tax revenue into the red zone. For the first time since we had our agreement with Waste Management, we used the check from Waste Management to balance this budget. We have not done that in any other year since we've had that. That money has all gone into strategic planning requests here with the county. The only significant revenue, the biggest part of the revenue that this board controls is the property tax. We have no other taxing authority except what is specifically granted to us by the state of North Carolina. And we are using every one of those. And we have projected, as I said, to what we think we can possibly project to have to receive in sales tax revenue. The only other is what we just got through doing are the fees. And as has been mentioned, that ain't gonna pay for a whole lot. So the sales tax is the only revenue that we have any significant control over. We have several economic development projects right now, and those in particular, one just approved a couple of weeks ago with Ross Stores, and then of course the Toyota facility. They're going to all bring additional revenue to the county, but that's still probably a couple years away. As has been mentioned, truthfully and painfully, there's almost $3.5 million of Medicaid hold harmless money that we have always had that has not been made available to us this year. We've been told that there will be a budget item in the state budget to make up for that shortage.
For some of it.
Some of it. We don't know how much some, S-O-M-E, means in S-U-M. The sum of the sum.
Good point.
And as long as they're in session in Raleigh, anything can happen. The other issue that could happen with that, they may very well fund us $3 million. If that's one time and we spend that money, we've already put $3 million on next year's budget before we ever start. So those are the issues that have played a big role in the process that's brought us to this point. So the best thing that we have is that we have a balanced budget. We've used all the revenues that we think we have, and we have funded what we think we can. We still have some strategic planning money that's available, and that will be a separate budget item for us at our August County Commissioners meeting. And we'll work on that list, and it again will be made available for funding. So our tax base is growing. The other thing, this board in the last 2 or 3 months has committed to some pretty strategic and expensive projects. We funded some of that with our community college, with some immediate needs that they have to get started to the bigger picture. We have given approval for the Randolph County schools to start looking for 2 sites, for an elementary school in Liberty and a new high school in Randleman. And we have already funded the demolition of the Braxton Craven School, as well as the attendance study that the county schools want. We've already committed to all of that separate from our budget and committed the county to those funds. We've committed the money to match the state grant for South Asheboro Middle School. So it's not that we haven't continued. We approved a bonus for certain county employees, those in the wellness program, to try to share back to those. That's in a separate pot of money. So that's where we are tonight. And the question for the board is, are we going to, we met last week, Mr. Allen and I did, with Will and Zeb, other members, but do we start trying to piecemeal something? Do we take what has been presented and this budget and see where we go? It's got a 3% COLA, and I think that is an issue that when the revenues that the county's gonna have to address in a more significant way. So with that, we have finished the renovations at the Balfour School. You've heard tonight the Northgate project completed, Ashboro High School project completed. I don't know if I should say the jail, hopefully. That's been going on for 7 or 8 years. I think we're getting close, Paxton. Can you assure us that we're getting close? So that's been an ongoing process, and money here, a little bit there. And we've had a couple, as Will noted, that's come in, actually had a little money left, and we're applying it to some of these other issues. So that's where we are on the budget tonight, and it's up to this board to adopt the budget as presented and as balanced, with a county tax rate holding at 50 cents. We've approved these other tax rates. They also held as presented. So that's my comments for tonight, and the board is welcome to make comments, and we'll be ready to have a motion one way or another to proceed with this budget. Comments from the commissioners?
Mr. Chair, I think this is a transitional budget. Basically, we're kind of transitioning from what we've had to the growth in the county with Toyota, but the problem is that growth's not there yet and reflected in our tax revenues. Now, it's coming, but again, along with that growth is going to have some extra challenges along with the building of new schools, and so it's seems like every year the budgets are always tough, and we always say, well, this one's the toughest one we've had, but we're going to have some tight budgets in the future, I'm sure. But we asked Will and his staff to go out and give us a budget with those budget priorities that have been discussed, and he's done that. And you know, we'd like to do more, but you've only got so much revenue you can work with, so that's where we are. And I think we've addressed a lot of the issues that we felt like we need to address in the budget. I think it's a pretty good budget. When we have a $191 million budget and we're sitting up here discussing fees, a difference of $100, that's pretty, that's the big topic, not all the other things going on in the budget. So I'm pleased that we're able to do that, especially starting out $3.5 million roughly in the hole.
That is a real number, and Medicaid expansion changed the formula a little bit from what it used to be. It was originally intended to make up for the difference when the county was able to get the state to take over 100% of Medicaid. Counties fought for that for several years, and but any time that the revenue that a state lost, that a county lost, that was greater than the Medicaid expense, the state made up that difference. It's changed a little bit in recent years, but it affected us. We went from 5.3, 5.4 million to about 1.2 million, or 1.7. So that's about $3.5 million of revenue that we've always had. 5.2 was in the 2023-24 budget, and now it's not there. So it is a real number, and it's been hanging over this whole process since we started. And if the governor vetoes the budget, which very likely to happen. Who knows where it'll go and when.
I think the other thing on the Medicaid hold harmless was we didn't know about it.
Right.
So we didn't have an opportunity to
Plan.
No.
to plan for it. Will, I guess we got notification in late March,
March 13th, when the distribution became public,
Yep.
so,
everybody started to notice.
and, you know, it's not just us, it's the other counties too, but we seem to be a little bit more hard hit than some of the others. But I think that's the biggest issue is you know, this board doesn't like surprises, and we got a big surprise, and it was not positive. So that kind of set the tone for the budget season.
Randolph County, it hurt us more because Randolph County had the second highest percentage of growth in sales tax of the 100 counties last year, in the last 2 years. So it affected us more. That's what got us through the pandemic. If you went out to Walmart or Lowe's out here during the pandemic, you couldn't find a parking place. But that really helped us to stay afloat and be able to continue to provide services here in the county. Anybody else got anything you want to say, or when you're ready to vote, I'll entertain a motion.
Well, before you do, I'd just like to reiterate what you said about the sales tax, because people coming in and shopping, spending their funds in Randolph County really does help. There has already been referenced, I think, the wall that heals, and I feel like veterans will come from several counties away to, to see that, and while they're here, they'll be spending money and eating in the restaurants and shopping, and so I'm appreciative of that. I'm appreciative of it for the veterans, but also of the generation of that sales tax. So.
That's another issue with the growth, and again with these two projects. When Toyota first announced, if you remember, I think the first request was about $1.5 billion. That was projected to produce a payroll in excess of $100 million a year that'll go back into the economy. I have no idea what that number is on $14 billion and 5,000 employees, but all that's going to generate sales tax. And that's all the visitors coming to the zoo when Asia opens, the sportsplex, all that's filling up hotel rooms, restaurants, and it generates sales tax, and they go back home and we don't have to educate their children. But that's, good things are here. We just still a little bit ways away from that. All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the budget ordinance for fiscal year 24-25 with the, and set the ad valorem tax rate at 50 cents per $100 valuation, which produces a budget of $191,726,080 for the fiscal year 2024-2025.
Do I have a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Further discussion or comments? It's been good discussion.
I'm really excited that we're not raising the tax rate. I think everybody's appreciative. And good financially sound budget, and we did what we could do, and no tax increase.
And I want to thank Will for bringing us through this process, and in the interim, he was also our interim manager, and Zeb came in as a working process, and their professionalism and local government has really paid strong dividends for this county. And as best can be, made it a lot easier than it ordinarily could have been. But kudos to Will and to Zeb for bringing us to this point, and I'd be remiss not to recognize them in that process. And all the departments. I know some of you wish things were a little different. I don't think there's a board in North Carolina that gets any better respect from its people and its department heads than we do in Randolph County. And that does not go unnoticed. We can see not too many miles from here what goes on between school boards and commissioners, and we have a great working relationship with all three of our schools here. It doesn't go unnoticed, and it's appreciated. I want all of you to know that, and your professionalism in dealing with each one of your individual requests in this process. Further comments? All right, those in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And we have a budget. All right, again, thank all of you, and we'll be back in July, ready to go and start a new year. So, and thank all the folks that watch from home tonight, as always. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Tara.
Okay.